Yo, what is actually going on in 2026? I am literally shaking right now. My hands are trembling as I hold this phone, but I had to hit record. I had to let y'all know the level of pure, unadulterated audacity I just faced is to pounding against my ribs like a drum that won't quit. We need to talk. We need to talk about what just went down in third period history class at Westside Prep. This isn't just some viral story time. This is a reality check for every institution that thinks they can still police black bodies in a world that's supposed to be woke. Before we even get into the drama, just look at this. Look at the volume, look at the coils, look at the sheer majesty of this 4C crown. Last night, I spent 3 whole hours of my life, moisturizing, detangling, and loving on every single strand. I used the best oils, the thickest butter, and I picked it out until it reached for the heavens. Why? Because my hair is my glory. It's my connection to a lineage of queens. It's not just hair, it's a statement of existence. I walked into school today feeling like a literal goddess. My skin was glowing, my outfit was on point, and my fro was flourishing like a garden in the sun. I thought I was just going to school to learn about the American Revolution. I didn't know I was about to start a revolution of my own. I walked into Mrs. Gable's classroom. Now, let's talk about Mrs. Gable. She's one of those teachers who prides herself on being colorblind. You know the type. She says things like, "I don't see color, I just see students," which we all know is just code for, "I don't want to acknowledge your struggle or your identity." I sat down in the second row, pulled out my MacBook, and got ready for the lecture. I was minding the business that pays me. I wasn't talking, I wasn't on my phone, I was just existing. The classroom was quiet, just the sound of students whispering and the scratching of pens on paper, but I could feel it. That cold, sharp gaze from the front of the room. Mrs. Gable wasn't looking at her PowerPoint. She wasn't looking at her notes. She was staring at the top of my head with this look of pure disgust, like I had walked in with something offensive on my head. She started pacing. Her heels were clicking against the floor. Click, 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 like a countdown to a bomb. Suddenly, she stops right in front of my desk. The whole room goes quiet. The silence was so heavy you could almost touch it. She leans in, and I could smell the stale coffee and expensive perfume on her breath. She whispers, but she's using that stage whisper that she knows everyone in the first 3 rows can hear perfectly. She says, "Maya, sweetie, we have a bit of a problem. Your hair, it's just very large today. It's becoming a massive distraction to the students sitting behind you. You're blocking the view of the whiteboard, and frankly, it doesn't really fit the professional grooming standards we uphold at this academy. It looks a bit untidy, a bit wild." Untidy? Wild? I felt the blood rush to my face. The heat was rising from my chest to my ears. I looked around the room. Right behind me was Chloe. Chloe is a sweet girl, but today she had her hair in a messy bun that literally looked like a bird's nest. There were greasy strands sticking out everywhere. It was falling over her eyes, and it was held together by a dirty scrunchie. To my left was a guy with a neon blue mohawk that was at least 6 inches high. Mrs. Gable hadn't said a single word to them, not one. My hair was clean. It was picked out. It was a work of art, but because it was an afro, it was wild. I looked her dead in the eye. I didn't blink. I said, "Mrs. Gable, can you clarify what you mean by wild? Because my hair is clean, it's styled, and it's growing out of my scalp exactly how it was meant to. If Chloe's messy bun isn't a distraction, and that blue mohawk isn't a distraction, why is my natural hair the only thing you're worried about? Is it the hair, or is it the person it's attached to?" The room went ghost silent. Mrs. Gable's face turned a shade of red that I can only describe as angry Karen. She slammed her hand on my desk hard, making my laptop bounce. "Don't you dare catch an attitude with me, young lady. This is a prestigious school. We don't allow urban styles that disrupt the learning environment." Now, you have 2 choices. You can go to the nurse's office right now and find a hair tie to slick that back into a tight, neat ponytail. Or you can go to the principal's office and explain why you're being defiant. We have an image to maintain, and your afro doesn't fit it. Aggressive, professional, image. I heard all the code words. The word aggressive hung in the air like a thick, poisonous fog. I've heard that word my whole life. It's the magic word they use whenever a black girl exists without apologizing for it. It's the word they use to silence us when we speak the truth. It's the get out of jail free card for every Karen who feels threatened by our confidence. I looked at my desk. I looked at the history book that was supposedly teaching us about liberty and justice for all. What a joke. I realized at that moment that I could stay. I could go to the bathroom, cry in a stall, and tie my hair back until my scalp ached and my spirit broke. I could shrink myself down until I was small enough to fit into Mrs. Gable's narrow little world. But if I did that, I'd be betraying every black woman who came before me. I'd be telling every little girl who looks like me that her natural self is a problem to be solved. I slowly started packing my bag. I took my time. I didn't rush. I zipped up my laptop sleeve. The sound was like a thunderclap in that silent room. I put my pens away one by one. Every single eye in that classroom was glued to me. I stood up, and I felt like I was 10 feet tall. I looked Mrs. Gable straight in her soul, and I didn't blink. I said, "Mrs. Gable, my hair isn't a distraction. Your biases. My hair isn't a problem. Your narrow mind is. I'm not going to the nurse to hide who I am, and I'm not going to the office to beg for your forgiveness. I'm going home, because if my natural self is too wild for your classroom, then your classroom is too small for my future. I turned my back on her and walked out. I didn't look back. I heard her screeching behind me. Maya, come back here right now. You are suspended. You are throwing your scholarship away. Do you hear me? I heard her all right, but for the first time in my life, her voice didn't have any power over me. The hallway felt miles long. I walked past the lockers, past the trophies, past the portraits of the founding fathers that lined the walls. I walked past the security guard, Mr. Henderson. He looked at me confused. Hey, Maya, where's your hall pass? Where are you going, kid? I didn't even slow down. I just shouted back. I'm taking my distraction somewhere where it's actually appreciated. I pushed through the heavy double doors and the sun hit my face like a blessing. It was the first time in 4 years at Westside Prep that I didn't feel like I was suffocating. I got into my car, locked the doors, and that's when the tears finally came. Not because I was sad, not because I was scared, but because the adrenaline was leaving my body, and I finally felt free. I sat there for 20 minutes just breathing. Then I pulled out my phone. I hit record. I told the world about the West Side Standard, which is really just code for the white standard. I told them about the teachers who want our rhythm but hate our blues. I told them how they love our culture on a stage but hate it in a classroom. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the video was already exploding. 50K views, 100K views, 500K views. The comments were a battlefield. People were calling Mrs. Gable out. People were sharing their own stories of being told their braids were unprofessional. My parents were waiting for me on the porch. My dad is a man of few words, but when I told him what happened, when I told him she called my hair urban and wild, his eyes turned into fire. He didn't ask me why I got suspended. He didn't ask me if I was sorry. He asked me one thing. Did you stand your ground? I said, yes, Dad. I stood on business. He picked up his phone right then and there. He called the school board president. He didn't yell. He was calm. And in America, a calm black man with a lawyer on speed dial is the scariest thing a school board can face. He told them, my daughter is a 4.0 student. She is a leader. If your teachers think her hair is a distraction, then your teachers are the ones who need an education. We aren't coming in for a meeting. We're coming in for a change. The next morning, I didn't go to class, but I didn't stay home either. I organized a crown protest on social media. At 8 a.m., over 300 students showed up at the school gates. Black, white, brown, everyone. And they all wore their hair out. It was a sea of afros, braids, locks, and twists. We stood there in total silence. We didn't need to shout. Our presence was the loudest thing that school had ever heard. The school board panicked. They realized, SE, that in 2026, you can't just bully black girls and expect them to be quiet. Within 48 hours, Mrs. Gable was placed on administrative leave. The principal had to issue a public apology on the school's website. But we didn't stop there. We pushed until they signed the Crown Act into the district's official handbook. I won, but this wasn't just my win. This was for every girl who has ever been told she's too much. This was for every woman who was told her locks were unprofessional for the corporate world. To the world, my hair might be a distraction, but to me, it's my history. It's my strength and it's my power. I am Maya. My hair is my glory, and I am done being quiet, period.